Are the Chicago Bears secretly preparing to completely detonate their roster by cutting DeAndre Swift and trading away D.J. Moore? The massive cap savings are undeniably tempting, but the catastrophic long-term damage to the offense could literally haunt this franchise for years. Buckle up, because we are tearing into the most explosive, controversial, and terrifying offseason decisions staring Ryan Poles right in the face. Before we dive into this absolute madness, make sure you smash that like button, share this video with your fellow diehards, and subscribe right now so you never miss a breaking update. Let us kick things off with a scenario that is absolutely tearing this fanbase apart right now. There is a massive, raging debate about the future of our backfield, specifically whether the front office should cut or trade DeAndre Swift and replace him with someone like Kenneth Gainwell. Now, before you start throwing your phone at the wall, let us actually look at the reality of this. Gainwell quietly put together a genuinely fantastic season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are talking about over 500 rushing yards and almost 500 receiving yards. The man racked up over 1,000 all-purpose yards and essentially took over as their lead back in terms of snap counts. If you look at the raw production, he was actually outproducing Jaylen Warren, especially when you factor in his elite skills as a receiving back out of the backfield. So, bringing him to Chicago is definitely an incredibly fascinating thought experiment. Here is where the brutal business side of football comes into play. If the front office cuts or trades DeAndre Swift, they instantly save $7.5 million against the cap. So, what would Kenneth Gainwell actually cost us on the open market? Honestly, you are probably looking at a $5 million a year player. A 2-year, $10 million contract with around $7 million guaranteed feels exactly right for his market value. If you pull the trigger on that, you are suddenly looking at a backfield where Kyle Manengai steps up as your heavy-hitting lead rusher, and Gainwell slots in perfectly as that dynamic, change-of-pace weapon. Is saving a measly few $1 million really worth blowing up our backfield chemistry right when the offense is finally clicking? I honestly do not think so. Swift undeniably gives you significantly more juice as a pure, downhill runner. Yes, Gainwell might give you a tiny bit more versatility in the passing game, but if the ultimate goal is just to save cash at the running back position, you are honestly better off just drafting a rookie, bringing him along slowly, and letting him develop. But the ultimate question here is whether DeAndre Swift will even be wearing a Bears uniform next season. Personally, I firmly believe he will be. You are looking at an $8.8 million cap hit for a guy who just gave you over 1,300 all-purpose yards. That is more than a fair price. He might not be the most perfect running back in the history of the league, but his on-field production absolutely justifies his current paycheck. Running it back with Swift and Manengai is the smartest, safest move we can make. Now let us move on to something that is making my blood boil, the absolute delusion surrounding the D.J. Moore contract situation. I am so sick of hearing people casually say that we should just keep him and restructure his deal, as if this is some sort of video game where the salary cap does not matter. It is not that simple. Yes, if you execute a maximum restructure on D.J. Moore, you save $16.8 million. If you trade him, you save $16.5 million. On the surface, people look at those two numbers and ask why we wouldn't just restructure him and keep the talent. Here is the brutal, undeniable truth: it is not an apples-to-apples comparison. If you trade D.J. Moore, you are completely cutting the head off the snake. You take your medicine, you eat the $12 million in dead money this year, you save the $16.5 million, and most importantly, he is completely off your books forever. You have a clean slate. But if you restructure him, you are just kicking a massive financial time bomb down the road. You are literally taking that immediate cap relief and stacking it onto the future years of his contract. That means next year, you are right back in the exact same miserable salary cap hell, except his cap hit becomes even more astronomically high than his current $28.5 million figure. He is absolutely not playing under that current cap hit, so the front office is going to be forced to either trade him or restructure him. Sure, a pay cut would be an absolute miracle, but let us live in reality. That is never going to happen. So please stop letting people convince you that restructuring is the magical, pain-free solution. It might look identical on this year's spreadsheet, but it is pure poison for the long-term health and roster construction of this football team. Question of the day for you guys, jump in the comments right now. What are you actually more hyped for this offseason, the draft or free agency? Drop a D4 draft or an F4 free agency down below because I really want to know where your head is at. Speaking of the draft, the hype surrounding our first and second round picks is reaching a fever pitch. The dream scenario floating around is that we can somehow snag a top 5 defensive tackle and a top 5 safety without having to aggressively trade up. And the crazy part is, that is an incredibly realistic possibility. When we are sitting there at pick 25, you are almost absolutely guaranteed to have a premier defensive tackle staring right at you. The board is loaded with absolute monsters like Peter Woods, Caden McDonald, Lee Hunter, and Caleb Banks. At least one or two of those game wreckers will slide to 25. And then, when we circle back in the second round at pick 57, the safety market should be ripe for the picking. A guy like A.J. Halsey could absolutely fall right into our laps. Zaki Wheatley out of Penn State is another phenomenal name to watch. Because safety is just not viewed as a premium, first-round necessity in today's NFL, elite talents naturally drift into the second round. Walking out of this draft with a foundational defensive tackle in round 1 and an elite safety in round 2 is a massive, franchise-altering possibility. If we are ranking those defensive tackles, it is a fierce debate. Caleb Banks probably possesses the highest ultimate ceiling, assuming his medicals come back completely clean. But if you want a rock-solid, incredibly safe bet, Caden McDonald is the guy. His floor is incredibly high, his athleticism perfectly translates to the pro game, and he has the ideal size. If McDonald is sitting there, you sprint to the podium. Personally, I am a massive fan of Lee Hunter, but my board goes McDonald at 1, Banks at 2 based purely on upside, Hunter at 3, and then Peter Woods down at 4. Woods did not have the most spectacular year, but if defensive coordinator Dennis Allen looks at the tape and sees a vision for him, you have to trust the coaching staff. The upcoming combine is going to be absolutely make or break for Woods to regain his top-tier status. We also have to talk about the pass rush and the linebackers. T.J. Parker out of Clemson is a fascinating evaluation. If he completely tears up the combine, he is easily a first-round lock. He had a dominant week at the Senior Bowl and profiles as a high-floor, highly physical edge setter who completely controls the run game and wins with pure, violent strength. If he can develop even one elite secondary pass rush move, he will be a terrifying pro. Right now, he is a rock-solid prospect you comfortably take in the 20s. Then there is Gabe Jackas out of Illinois. He is a super versatile edge guy with serious room for growth, but he definitely fits the mold of a day 2 prospect, likely in the 3rd round. He naturally projects as a 3 to 4 edge, but he has the frame to pack on more mass. Again, Dennis Allen would need a very specific, detailed plan to maximize his raw talent. And what about Kyle Lewis? The hype around this linebacker is getting loud. Is he genuinely worth a day 2 selection? I absolutely love him around pick 89, but taking him at 57 feels way too rich. The glaring issue is his size. He is currently listed at 220 pounds, which is incredibly light, even for a modern, hybrid NFL linebacker. It is a violently physical league, and unless he can bulk up to at least 230 pounds, trusting him as an every-down thumper is a massive, massive risk. That being said, his coverage skills are completely off the charts. He relies heavily on his background as a safety and looked absolutely phenomenal during Senior Bowl week. He is 100% a player you keep permanently locked on your day 2 radar. Finally, I need to address the rampant panic about free agency. So many of you are freaking out, demanding to know why we haven't re-signed Kevin Byard yet. Take a deep breath and stop stressing. It is still incredibly early in the process. The scouting combine hasn't even kicked off yet. The real, heavy-duty negotiations do not start until all the agents, executives, and general managers are locked in the same room in Indianapolis. And remember, the official legal tampering period does not even open until March 9th. That is weeks away. Teams are currently buried in their own internal evaluations, putting together free agent boards, and deciding who gets cut and who gets paid. The Byard deal will likely get done before free agency officially begins, so just be patient. Before I go, I want to throw one more wild, highly entertaining idea your way: trading for Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle Jordan Davis. It sounds crazy, but think about it. If the Eagles are preparing to hand Jalen Carter a massive, record-breaking contract, can they really afford to pay Jordan Davis the $12.9 million attached to his fifth-year option? Davis is an absolute brick wall against the run. He graded out at a 72 overall, and despite what the critics say, he quietly registered 4.5 sacks last season. Would you willingly hand over a fourth-round pick for a massive interior run stuffer like that? You flip a fourth-round pick, bring him into our building, and maybe extend him on a reasonable 3-year, $36 million deal. Getting a player of that sheer physical magnitude for $12 million a year is exactly the kind of aggressive, outside-the-box thinking this franchise desperately needs to jump to the next level.